All right, guys, here we go. And welcome back to another episode of TWiP. I am your host, Frederick Van Johnson. Joining me today to discuss some of the cool things and monkey business in the world of photography this week are Mr. Dan Ablin and Mr. Sil Arena. Hey, guys, how you doing?
Hey, Frederick.
Frederick, hello.
All right, we got lots to talk about. I want to jump right into the show, but I want to touch base with you guys first, because first of all, Sil, what's going on in your world over there? Anything crazy happening in the world of education and corrupting? I mean, influencing children's minds.
It's been a great summer. Did 2 workshops this summer, and then more importantly, just got off a 12-day road trip with one of my sons. We toured Four Corners Land,
Nice.
and that was amazing. But I taught at Rocky Mountain School of Photography for the first time, and did my usual workshop in Santa Fe, which was fantastic.
Wow.
And in 2 weeks, I haul off to Maine for the last workshop of the summer. So
You're just a working fool over there, ain't you? I like it. Cool.
traveling man.
Any books in the works, or did you hang that hat
Oh
up?
Lord, no. I'm glad you, Peach Pit's glad you asked that question. I'm well underway in the 2nd edition of Speedlighter's Handbook.
Yay!
Yeah, sometime this fall. And it was originally pitched to me, like they said, just go in, and add the new chapters for Canon's new radio speedlight, and maybe just polish up things. I got to tell you, I look at what I wrote 4 years ago. I was like, I really said that? Are you kidding me? It's like a total rewrite. It's
Wow.
in Silverina style, of course. TWiP, I hope you're not listening. I'm behind schedule.
Yeah.
And
Ted's rolling his eyes right now.
yeah. So anyway, but it's going to be it's going to actually. I hate to say this, it's going to be better than the first book, which I worked really, really hard on. But this new edition. I mean, if there's anything about teaching, you got to figure out how to make things understandable and also simplify workflows, right?
Yeah.
So I'm ripping all kinds of stuff out. People go, "What happened to this and that?" I was like, "You don't need to do it that way. It's way too complicated."
Well, good, because there's if you scroll down in the notes there's a listener question in there that has to do with sync speed and flash. So
I read that.
I'm glad we got the Speedlighter magician on the show to answer that. If you don't know the answer, you better get on Google now in another window.
I looked up the answer.
Awesome. Cool. Well, welcome, man. It's good to have you back on.
Thank you.
And Mr. Dan Ablin over there, coming
sir.
from the Chicagoland area. According to your Facebook, there's some movement happening over there in your business. What's happening?
Yeah, just doing what many other photographers are doing. I guess we could say it here, that we are simplifying and probably going to be getting out of the brick and mortar business.
Wow.
After 6 years. So from going to retail to corporate, and
What took you so long?
I was determined. I'm not going to be like everybody else. But, I'm spread a little bit thin with, doing workshops, and, even like Mr. Ted from TEDway from Peach Pit. I know we had talked about a couple more book ideas. I'm like, I don't have the time.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of that, and we're not going to shoot out of the house or anything. And I started out in street photography, 30 years ago. So I kind of want to get back to that. And portraits will be just very special things, not really kind of a part of the regular business model as much anymore. So
That's cool.
So we're doing that.
Like I was saying before we started the show, a lot of photographers, myself included, kind of the holy grail is like, one day I'm going to make it and have a studio, and I can invite people over, and I can be the big shot walking around there. And then over time, that sort of dream has shifted away from that, right?
I mean, it's been terrific. We've had workshops, and we hosted this workshop for Port DC, came in from Ireland, and I've done my own training. I'm doing training on Friday. I got more people coming tomorrow, Wednesday, and Friday. I got people coming in. But at the end of the day, when people are like, "Oh, it's so beautiful and this is so great," well, that doesn't pay the bills.
Yeah.
So when you kind of look at what you have to spend and the upkeep versus how much you have to do, and we don't want to be a churn and burn type photographer.
Yeah.
Photography studios. So and we don't want to put hard restrictions and create heavy minimums and say, if you don't order in 30 days, we're going to delete your photos. And those are things we never did. And so you either have to go that way and really, play hardball, or, you know what, we're going to quit while we're ahead and just, And that way, things like, I did the Chicago workshop with Valerie Jardine, back here in April. And
wait. Let me correct you on that. You pronounce it
Jardine. Jardine, excuse me.
It's Jardin. Jardin.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. Sorry, Valerie.
I've been practicing for like 18 months. Come on.
And then we had the Out of Chicago photography workshop with a bunch of other great photographers that we did with Chris Smith, the Out of Chicago photography.
That's a new word, chicography. I like that.
Quick,
you should
go get the website.
You go to hover.com and register that chicography, right?
Anyway, so that's what's been up here. So, and then just doing senior shoots and doing some orthopedic animations and doing our 3D videos and same old stuff,
Awesome. Well, that's good. You guys are doing it. All right, guys. Before we jump in, I want to thank our first sponsor for this episode of This Week in Photo, and that's our good friends over at lynda.com.
Ah.
You know those guys, right?
I have 3 videos with them, yes.
All right, guys, let's jump back into the show. This first story, I got to say, well, first of all, thank you to it had to be at least 30 or 40 TWiP listeners that sent this over to me to make sure that we put it in the show. As a result of that, it is story number 1 in TWiP. So if you have a story that you'd like us to cover, make sure that you go to TWiP and submit it and tell us about it, and we'll cover it. This one, let me read this. So it's better for me to just get it right here. In 2011, 2 monkeys... I gotta stop right. In 2011, 2 monkeys went into a bar. Now, 2 monkeys borrowed photographer David J. Slater's camera and reportedly snapped some pictures of themselves. One of the selfies by a female macaque has since gone viral, and it made its way to Wikipedia's free-to-use website. Slater, the photographer, asked the website, Wikipedia, to take the photo down, but Wikipedia said no. The photo is uncopyrightable because animals can't own copyrights. Come on, Sil, what do you think about this? If let's say your cat snatches your camera away from you,
right,
takes some photos of itself. Whose photos? First of all, whose photos are they? You own the cat. Are the photos yours by virtue of the fact that you own the cat? Or
so I looked at some of the like the coverage online.
Yeah.
And the legal analyst at CNN said, well, technically the monkey or the ape, I don't know,
the primate
stole the camera. So it was out of the photographer's control, and that's why he doesn't own the copyright.
Caesar is home.
I mean, I had to wonder. This happened in Indonesia anyway, and I have to say, I mean, I have no idea. If I go to a different country as an American photographer, if I push the button, am I creating an American copyright when I'm shooting in Cuba, or, so I didn't even know, like,
American, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's because we're outside. I get it. If you push the button in this country, you own the copyright, and unless you are working under a written work for hire agreement that's very specifically defined, in which case you're defined as an employee and you don't own. But, I mean, everybody from second wedding shooters to guys who are willing to let monkeys steal their camera really need to study up on copyright law. Because that's really the takeaway for me is I looked at this and I thought, yeah, this is a charming story. And actually the monkey got a pretty damn good photo. It's worth looking up.
I didn't think that was real. I thought it was fake when I first saw it.
Yeah, the way his eyes look like mine, really big.
It's perfect. It's the perfect photo. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. It was one of those things that's like, really? I don't think the guy's got the copyright because he didn't push the shutter button, nor was the monkey working under a work for hire agreement that was expressed in writing.
The monkey needs a lawyer. I don't know, Dan. When you look at this, see, my knee-jerk reaction when I saw that was, okay, if it's my gear and a arguably lower life form takes a photo or creates by accident a photo with my gear, by default, shouldn't that work belong to me? Because that photo would not have happened without my interaction, right?
That's what I would think. I didn't know about the whole pushing the button thing. So all the little kids that over the years in the studio where I had to get them to, come here, you can try it, just to get them to.
Yeah,
interact.
It's their work.
Like, well, suddenly it's their work now. I got to go back and look at my archives, but it's not a human. It's not a person. So. The areas in copyright are so gray, and I know some copyright lawyers say, no, that's not true, but the internet and photos, even things like some of my training videos have been taken, well, by a thing called a first sale doctrine. And it's an old copyright law before videos and internet and everything else, but there's a loophole. And basically, if you rent, or if you buy, I should say, if you buy an actual DVD from, let's say lynda.com, this guy that started this company, which I won't say because he can go out and legally rent it one at a time. He cannot distribute it or show it publicly, but he can rent it, and there's no royalties paid to the copyright holder. So there's so many things like that across the internet now with what people can grab offline, and when it comes to selfies like this, if your monkey takes your camera,
it just seems weird to me because it seems funny, yeah, of course, monkey, blah blah blah. I love the angle of this and the fact that the shot was awesome. But you come down to it, and I just think, like, what if this had been something like, something monumental, like, something historic that happened with some world leader or something, and the monkey got the shot, by accident, but it's with your gear that you flew to this country, the monkey got the shot. What happens to that image? And now it's going viral across the internet, and you make nothing from it because, I
bet you a lawyer would say, since the monkey has no technically identity, but lives in that state or country, that photo then would become a word of the state, and the state then owns it, or the country then owns it. Oh, I bet you some lawyer would do something like that.
Oh, makes you not want to be a photographer. So what happens if I'm running around and I drop my camera? It fires off a photo, which means by virtue the Earth has taken that photo. It's not me. The Earth took it. Is it the Earth's photo at that point?
I think Isaac Newton owns the copyright because he's the guy who figured out gravity.
Or Canon.
Or Canon. Well, here's the thing about when you drop your gear. I tell all my students this. If you flinch when you drop your gear, then you're an amateur. Pros don't flinch. They just let it hit the ground. And if you get a good shot out of it, let's face it. If this guy had shown I guess you don't tell anybody you dropped your camera. You don't tell anybody the monkey took the photo, right? The guy put it out there saying, hey, look at this photo that the monkey took.
Yes.
And then
there's the mistake.
There's the thing, it's like you've just put it out in the public domain that the monkey took the photo. So, Dan, as far as you're concerned, no kid ever touched a camera in your studio.
What? I was just thinking about something else, I think.
You were mistaken, Dan.
It was a birthday party you went to as a kid.
Right.
So, it's intellectual property is such a weird, especially of late, with Google getting the patent for white seamless photography and all of that business.
That was Amazon.
Amazon, yeah, Google, Amazon, all the big companies.
Right.
But I don't know, it's one of those, I honestly don't know. I've never considered if I go outside the United States and I take photos, when I come back in the United States, do I own the copyright? Because let's face it, copyright is country by country thing. There's no international copyright, right? So
well, there is, but it varies from country to country, right? But you're right. There's no. I don't think there's an international standard that has been agreed upon by everyone on the planet that applies, right?
And it always gets down to the deepest pockets anyway. It's like, who's going to win in this case? If he wanted to pursue it, the attorneys would win, right? Because they're the ones who are going to get the money.
And I fought somebody that was taking my training videos and renting them without me knowing. It cost me about $2,200 in legal fees to find out. Sorry, nothing you can do. It's part of it.
So then what happens? So say you're at a workshop. You're at one of these workshops. You're in Maine or wherever, running around the country or the world, and you got, you've set it up. You've got a group of people. So you got 6, 12 people lined up with the tripods, and they're doing the shot of this, some feature. Say it's a landscape or something, and you're doing the instructor pollinating thing where you go to each student and you talk to them and tell them what they're doing right, what they're wrong, and all this stuff. And one of the students, you actually press the shutter button after they've composed the image. They've composed it. It's all perfect. It looks beautiful. You press the shutter button. That photo then goes on to become widely recognized as amazing. Who owns that photo at that point? You as a normal, a good upstanding photographer would say, hey, it's the students, of course.
Right.
But legally, is it yours?
Yeah. So I think legally in the U.S., if I push the button, it's mine because copyright is made the moment the work is created. So by pushing the button, I create the copyright in that image. But by the way, Frederick, my students never use tripods, so that would never happen.
Okay, got it.
I would just take their camera and say, here.
Yeah.
So, it's an interesting area of the law, and one that's really challenging. But as I understand it, and again, I'm not a copyright attorney, nor have I ever played one on television.
Yeah.
But
none of us. So don't be taking our word as legal.
It's my understanding that whoever pushes the shutter button, in the absence of that written work for hire agreement, whoever pushes the shutter button owns that copyright.
So does it say? And I haven't read this. I'm definitely gonna dive into it after this, but. Is the word whoever presses the shutter button, or is it at the moment the piece of art was created? And then, Dan, where I'm going with this is when you create an image in a digital camera, if you're shooting in RAW, not RAW plus JPEG, because a JPEG is a developed version of that image. Right. RAW is just raw data. It is not an image at that point. So if you take someone's raw data and you process it and interpret that raw data, does the image then become yours legally?
Right, and that's the thing. Like, what if you put a sky in? What if you just took that mountain?
Well, that's manipulation at that point. But I'm saying,
but if the final image that you're putting out is, let's say you're working with a student, you push the button on their camera.
Yeah.
But then they take the image, put the sky in, and only take, let's say, the bottom half mountain range from when you push the shutter, but it's their sky that they photograph from something else.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then it's half and half. You both own the copyright, because that would be the final work.
No, I think it's yours. I think it's once you start moving pixels around. We've talked about this before. Once you start, then it becomes a new work at that point because you're remixing. It's like almost sampling and all that stuff. So you're remixing when you put you can assemble other artists' work into one, and it becomes yours at that point.
All right.
So there's a line, but essentially it becomes yours. What I'm saying is, if it's raw data, zeros and ones on that CF card, and you develop it, versus someone else developing it because it wasn't an image before.
I think you're stretching.
I am stretching. But I'm saying lawyers have been known to stretch. Come on.
No.
Never.
What are you talking about?
I'm just saying that's what they do.
All I'd say is just hold on to your camera and push your own buttons.
Yes. Yeah. Crazy stuff. Well, I think we solved it in this. If this photographer, Mr. Slater, David J. Slater, had a time machine, he would go back and stop bragging about the fact that a monkey took the shots. Yeah. Tell your close friends and family, but to everyone else, hey, this is my work. I did this.
And real quick on an offshoot, so what about if you push the button on a GoPro and then a lion takes it, or some of those videos we've seen?
Yeah, or a hawk is flying around doing aerials with it. Yeah.
How does that work? Whose copyright is that? Did they got that aerial footage, or?
Well, according to barista Mr. Cilarino over there, then it's yours because you pressed the button, right?
Oh well.
Yeah, whoever pressed that button. Wow. All right, guys. Speaking of other copyright issues, this is another copyright show. It seems like this TWiP goes in these ebbs and flows of. We talk about technique and then gear, and then it goes down this rat hole of copyright all at once for some reason. So this one, let me read this for you. It says, a newspaper in New Zealand is in hot water after they pulled a photograph from Facebook and used it on the front page to accompany a story about a New Zealand-born Israeli soldier who died in Gaza. Now, the quote, the publication set out to tell the tragic story of New Zealand-born Israeli soldier Guy Boyland, who was killed in Gaza, but on the very front page, where the paper presumably meant to publish the image of Boyland, they instead used an image, a Getty image, of deceased Jackass star Ryan Dunn. It gets better. The mix-up, it seemed, happened when the newspaper decided to grab an image from Boyland's Facebook page instead of reaching out to the family or other official sources. Now, to the newspaper's credit, Boyland bears a slight resemblance to Dunn, the Jackass star, the deceased Jackass star. So basically, the person whose Facebook page this photo was on looked like Dunn a little bit. So, and had used Dunn's picture as a profile picture, probably as a gag, at some point in the past. The newspaper went there and said, "Oh, here's a good shot of him," which it would be since it came from Getty, and pulled it down and used it on the front page. Couple of questions come up with this. Dan, I'm gonna put it on your in your plate first. So, looking at this, first of all, journalism. When you look at journalism, is Facebook now the tool of choice for research when it comes to journalism? And is Facebook the trusted source? Just go to a profile and yank stuff, notwithstanding copyright issues.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the whole one issue, is just the whole Facebook copyright, if you're allowed to do that. But and I'm not claiming to be some journalist. However, I went to school for photojournalism and broadcast journalism, and in part of that, the prerequisites were mass media law and ethics. And so I always have a little pet peeve now, just even watching the news about the news anchors and throwing in the opinions after they do a news story. So the whole world of this has changed, and now you got 12-year-olds on social media that think they're journalists and doing basically crap like this without learning facts and checking the facts and double checking, because even things like the Today Show, we have that on in the morning at the studio, and it's like all they're doing is repeating what was on social media yesterday. And is that really news? And I mean, it is, but it's just how much reporting is there and how much investigation. So you have things like this where somebody didn't do their homework and somebody should be fired, because that's pretty bad. And Facebook is not it's not the AP wire,
It's just amazing where things are going. I mean, it doesn't look like it's gonna reverse, right? Because people seek the path of least resistance for anything, right?
There's many good things, so
yeah.
But there's many bad things too.
Yeah.
Double-edged sword. So what do you think?
Well, number one, I think it's a tragedy at so many levels. Even the conflict itself in which this young man gave his life.
Yeah.
We're being kind of flippant about the idea that this happened, but let's keep in mind the cause. But I'll say this. I looked up his photo, and I can totally, and I compare the photos side by side. I can see why somebody who was on deadline, who was perhaps upset because a countryman had lost his life in this, conflict that's halfway around the world. The two guys look pretty similar, and he's on the one, the guy from Jackass has got longer hair and a thicker beard, but the real guy had short. He was cropped like an Israeli soldier. It's like shorter hair and a well-trimmed beard. So I don't know. It's totally unfortunate. And I bet these things happen far more than we actually understand and realize.
No, I agree.
And it's just sad all the way around. From, like I said, from the conflict. I don't follow a lot of news, but this summer this has been a news event that no matter where I'm in the country, I'm like checking out and praying for peace, because it just breaks my heart that this is
keeps
happening.
going and going. Yeah, and you're right. Yeah, the whole gist of this particular story on TWiP is not about anything political, the war in Gaza, etc. And absolutely no disrespect to Guy Boylan or his family or any of that stuff, or Ryan Dunn. But the whole idea, I think the gist of this is the idea that a respected newspaper, I'm assuming that this New Zealand newspaper is respected, a respected newspaper would go to Facebook, even if they're on. You said something about them being on deadline. Yeah, that's no excuse. So go to Facebook and pull an image from Facebook, knowing that it was not, they didn't have the copyright to use it, period. That's the first piece. And then the second piece is Facebook in general as looking at it as a credible news source, and could it, maybe one day it'll evolve into that, and Facebook will do the citizen journalism thing, and kind of like what was it, CNN does that with the iReporter and all that stuff. Maybe they can do that, but it's not there, and it's not there yet.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. So how do we fix this? How do we fix this, guys? What's the solution? What checks can we as citizens and netizens or whatever put in place so that journalistic entities that are respected, that we presumably should trust, like this New Zealand newspaper, how do we safeguard against them doing the wrong thing like this? or should we just not trust them anymore? Pandora's box is open, and their trust is gone now.
I think they're teaching so much about social media and trends and statistics and analytics and but in those in when people are getting into social media, and it's a huge business. I know some of the marketing firms and people that work there, and are $110 million businesses. And that's just one part of some large companies I know. That's just the digital division that they're handling for other companies. But how much of that do they educate them on journalism and what's right and ethics and basically the things I went to college for, because I was going into broadcast journalism. So I interned at Channel 2 News in Chicago. My first job was shooting news at a CBS affiliate. And that goes to all lengths, whether it's, of course, now internet and copyright, but just what's appropriate to film and at the time videotape and use and wording and how it's said, and it's just. Yeah, I don't think there's enough education about just classic journalism. I truly think it's dying because people figure, oh well, it's on the internet, it's got to be true.
Right. Yeah, and that's interesting, because the other piece of that is I know a lot of YouTubers and other online celebrities with millions and millions of viewers. I would argue exponentially more than this newspaper has, and they are. This newspaper at least is held to some semblance of journalistic integrity, right? So you expect them to do the right thing, but us folks online, I would consider myself a YouTuber, or podcaster or whatever. There are no bylaws or anything for any of us to follow. There's not even there's no nothing.
With a publication like this, yes, the person who put it together is responsible, but ultimately it's the news editor that didn't check it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, but then the question becomes like, will there ever be any checks and balances? Like for TWiP, right? So we have a gigantic audience for This Week in Photo, and we could move mountains if we want to. And if we issue disinformation, we could hurt companies.
Yeah, but Valerie will let us know. Valerie will let us know if we did it wrong.
Yeah, Valerie. Yeah, but is there going to be a point in time where there's some? I don't want oversight or any kind of regulation on the internet or anything like that. But that's that catch-22. You kind of look like a journalist, you act like a journalist, you sound like a journalist, but you're not a journalist. You're not held to the same integrity traditionally as quote-unquote real journalists in old world media were held to.
It's the same thing as, no offense to the wedding photographers out there, but saying you're photojournalists. You're not. You're a wedding journalist. That's not photojournalism in my respect that I went to school for. It's wedding photography. With a lifestyle type of photography style, but it's not photojournalism. So I think those terms are just very loose today, however they're used.
We'll define that. Where's the line between that? Between wedding, like if you you're shooting a wedding and photojournalism. I know where the line is, because where I would put the line is regular photojournalism, especially wartime photojournalism. You don't know what's coming at you, and you got to be prepared to capture whatever and shoot it excellently and under duress and all that. Weddings are a little bit different, right? You're not
right, but at the same time, you are telling a story with photos, so I get it. I understand where they're using it. Just I'm from more the news side of it, and just you capture what happens and tell a story that way versus, a wedding. You are telling a story with those photos. So I just feel that the term has been expanded, and but I don't know. What does Sil think? He teaches. Yeah,
Sil, you're being quiet over there. Why?
This again. It's like a story that's just made me quiet. But I'll say everything you said. My long-standing joke about wedding shooters is, they're combat. It's just they're combat photographers in tuxedos.
Yeah.
Right. Everything.
Well, no. Because I was a combat photographer. No, you are not going to lose a limb taking pictures of grandma. I'm just saying.
You haven't met my mother-in-law.
Yeah. You are. Well, okay. The normal family, you probably won't come away, mortally wounded, But yeah, it's a different kind of journalism.
No, with all due respect to war photographers and the guys, Tim Hetherington and all, who go out there and literally lay their life on the line in these conflict zones like Gaza.
To me, that's photojournalism.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I don't know. It's a weird world. Like I get news off my iPhone from this little BBC app, and recently maybe I just missed it for the year that I've been using it, but recently I saw this thing that says submit story.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I mean, I guess, I don't know, yeah, people with iPhones or whatever are on the front line of news events, but I would certainly hope that they would vet, if Celerina reports, Elvis and a UFO landed Roswell. I hope they would vet that story, at least call up Don or Dan and get his, opinion.
Yeah.
But that,
Well,
Frederick, goes back to when Chicago Sun-Times, we had that on one of the TWiP episodes, and then they
Right.
everybody off because of what Phil's saying. They're just, here, you let the people submit the stories.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, still, you paint a picture of, Elvis and the UFO and all that, which is completely not plausible. But what if it was something that was kind of plausible? It was happening, like the Boston bombers or something, and you had photos of a side story from that was plausible but not true, and you submitted that.
Yeah.
No one can
So,
vet that, but it looks like, wow, this is a perfect sort of human interest story off of this main story. Let's publish it.
right.
And what if a monkey took the picture?
Yeah, exactly. See that? I'm trying to get it out of the gutter, and Dan keeps bringing us back in. Chicago people.
Right.
I don't know. This is interesting. I mean, that's why when we talk about this stuff on TWiP, it's interesting because there's never any resolution to it. Not because it's a story that can be resolved. It's just that's the way things are structured. All right, and some more legal stuff. So this one is going to be quick. This is not really photography related, but it kind of relates to what we were talking about, and that's patent trolls. So Adam Carolla, you guys may know him from Loveline and stand-up comedy and his amazingly popular podcast. He's become kind of a poster child for podcaster rights. So a company, a patent troll called Personal Audio, has been demanding cash from broadcasters large and small for allegedly infringing on its patent on delivering episodic online content. So, like us, right? Episodic online content. This is the so-called podcasting patent. Now, the company, which is based in Texas, they make no podcasts, and they do little else but litigate against companies that it says are using patents without a license. So, and essentially, that's the definition of a patent troll. They don't do anything. It's just a room full of lawyers and other folks that are looking for people that are making money on their patents, and then they sue them to see if they can get some of that money. But this week, the company announced that, and the company being Personal Audio, announced that it wanted to drop a long-standing or a long-running case against Adam Carolla because he isn't making all that much money, they say. So there's not a whole lot of blood to drain out of Adam, so they decided they're going to drop the suit. Now, Adam Carolla says he doesn't want to dismiss the case, but intends to pursue the case fully in the hopes of invalidating the patent entirely. So he wants to. So basically, the animal came after them, bearing its fangs, and instead of running away after they decided they were going to run away, he's chasing them. He wants to pull their teeth out so they can't bite anybody else. So, I know you're not a lawyer, or any of this stuff, but when you look at stuff like this, patent trolls in general, I mean, I've seen these patent trolls affect businesses that we're intimate with. Online photo sharing companies in particular get hammered by these guys with these silly little patents that affect an integral part of their business, and they have to spend millions defending themselves just to stay in business. What do you think about this? Should Adam be going after these guys, or should he just let sleeping dogs lie?
No, I think that it's great that he's standing his ground. I saw a reference in the piece when I clicked through that he's actually like crowdsourcing the legal funds. But I am grateful that he's making himself a poster child. Let's face it, I mean, patents are really important to commerce because that's what incentivizes people to take risks and think of really amazing things. And yeah, in the last 10 years, a new generation of creatives have come about, and Creative Commons licensing. I mean, that's all well and good, but if you create, if you're Matt Mullenweg, the guy who invented WordPress, and he puts it out there, right, and just think of how rich he could be if he capitalized on WordPress. But no, he put it out there in public domain essentially and monetizes it through an alternate channel. And I totally respect that. I believe firmly in patents. These patent trolls just drive me crazy.
Yeah.
You know, and it will be very interesting over the next 20 years or so to see how patent and copyright law it evolves here in the United States. So, you know, I think kudos to Carolla for standing up, and also kudos for him to go out to the masses and say, this is something that affects all of us. Because when you look at the details, I didn't know who these guys were, so I looked it up, and I think their patent was based upon sending out interviews on cassette tape in the 90s,
Yeah.
and yet their patent that they're asserting was granted like 2 years ago. So for me, the USPTO, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, just continues to do what I think is incredibly stupid things.
Yeah.
You know, giving this guy 15 years after the fact, or whatever it is, 25 years after the fact, I don't know, this patent that then gives him an opportunity to go after.
Yeah, and shake up an entire industry. And I wonder, like, just patent trolls in general. This company, Personal Audio, and the other ones that are affecting us, we as photographers in general. You know, there's been companies. There's a long line of carcasses down the road of companies that have been bled dry and had to shut down because of this, you know. Right. And still, you're right, it affects us directly, because now, whereas we would have had innovation and this particular service to do this cool things and service our customers this way, they're gone, because either they spent all their money trying to defend against these, you know, the vampires, or, you know, they just decided, you know, it's not worth it, we're going to fold and get out of here. I don't know, Dan, when you look at this, what do you think? Patent trolls?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything Sil said, and yeah, it will be interesting to see where it goes. But they are trolls. I mean, come on. You know, it's people that abuse loopholes in the law or a poor system, just like, you know, the company I mentioned that rents, you know, small company DVDs because they know they can't fight them. This one place, you know, they don't have anything from lynda.com because it's a big company and they can really fight them. And it seemed like this patent guy, they realized, oh, well, not enough money there. We'll go find somebody else that's using something. We can just, it's horrible.
Yeah.
You know, it's something I think hopefully will change, and I'm glad Adam Carolla is going after them. And maybe somebody that really has a good patent that or a good product and they're being fought, maybe they just buy this company out and squash them altogether, you know. Absolutely. But there'll be somebody else that would pop up. So,
well, TWiP listeners, go subscribe to Adam Carolla's podcast and listen to what he has to say about this stuff. It's some interesting stuff over there. Plus, highly entertaining stuff, obviously, from comedian Adam Carolla. All right, guys, before we continue with the listener Q&A, I want to remind listeners to check out our latest episode of All About the Gear with the fantastic host Doug Kay. Over there, the latest review is on the Sony RX100 Mark III, which is some say it's the world's best pocket camera. So you might want to go check that out, or point and shoot, however you want to classify it. But you can go check out all those episodes of all the cameras that we've reviewed over there at thisweekinphoto.com/gear. All right, let's jump into the listener Q&A. This is where we answer a question that has been posed by one of our listeners. This week's question comes from Mark Stowe via our Google Plus community page, which is climbing at over 8,500 members now. He says, I have a question for the gearheads in the crowd. Why does the Sony A7 have a sync speed of only 1/250th of a second? I gather it must still have a curtain shutter, but why? But I can't understand why any modern CMOS sensor needs a mechanical shutter. Any ideas? And Doug K responded, but I'm going to read Doug K's response after Sil responds, since Sil is Speedlighter Handbook version 2 author going on here. So what do you think?
So, all right, so I can authoritatively talk about what sync speed is, although I'm going to run right into a brick wall because I don't shoot Sony, but I can definitely lay the groundwork, and I would have called Doug to get the answer anyways on speed dial for this.
That's what I did.
All right, so here's the thing. Sync speed refers to the fact that when you put a flash in your camera, and we're talking about DSLR format cameras, not, you know, the guys like me who used to shoot view cameras with barrel lenses, but you've got in your DSLR form factor camera 2 curtains, and so the whole sync speed thing is about the fact that the camera should fire the flash on or off camera, studio strobe or small light. It's got to fire that flash when both curtains are free of the sensor. Otherwise, a portion of the sensor is not going to see the flash.
Right.
So, back in the day, sync speed was a 60th of a second when I was a pup with my little Sheikah mat, and now routinely it's a 250th of a second. And there's ways to make it go faster, with Nikon or Canon speed lights and so on. Now, that said, with cameras that have virtually electronic shutters, virtually where the sensor just turns on and off, if you plug in a non-proprietary flash to the hot shoe, basically one that the camera can't decipher, it doesn't know that it's there, you'll often find that you can sync it, a 2,000th of a second or whatever. So those and that's not stated in the manual. It's just something you've got to just go out and play with and check out. So I specifically can't speak to the Sony line in terms of, this. I think, and by the way, having read Doug's answer, it's, I think I approve of it 110%.
Yeah.
But that said, there's also, it's anyway. I'll shut up because I could go on about sync speed forever.
No, I know. I hear you're writing a chapter in your book right now. You're gonna
sync speed. It's all on tape. All I have to do is think it, and it writes. That's how easy it is.
There you go. Let me before we move on, let me just read this one in here. It says, let's see. Oh yeah, here we go. So I asked Doug, and so first of all, you got to go this. If you guys have a browser window open, go to thisweekinphoto.com and look at the latest post that I just put up there. Doug, I sent this question to him last night, and I think this was something that was on his mind because he wrote up basically a small ebook worth of text on this topic. So, and I asked him to summarize it a little bit for me. So here's the summarization. He says, the pixels on a CMOS sensor are erased, then read row by row, so the flash has to fire at a time when all rows have been erased, but none of them has yet been read. Because it takes time to erase and read the sensor, there is a minimum time for a flash exposure. That's the flash sync speed. As for the mechanical shutter, it's again a matter of how quickly the processor can get data off of the sensor. In order to achieve a speed of 1/8,000th of a second, the Sony engineers had to include a mechanical rear curtain shutter to quickly stop the sensor from collecting more light, then read the data at a relatively leisurely pace. So even my brain is exploding just reading that little piece. So imagine that. If you're really into this stuff, read the post that we just put up on This Week in Photo that Doug wrote. He goes into excruciating detail on the mechanics and some of the issues and limitations of syncing, flash sync speed. And this of course applies specifically to mirrorless cameras as well, which is the Sony A7 is a mirrorless and not your traditional DSLR. So I don't know, Dan. What do you think about this? You have anything to add to
Not at all. Not at all. All I know is
what he said. Yeah,
pretty much what he said. Stay under 200 for my strobes in the studio. Otherwise, I'm getting a nice black line, and it's gonna be out of sync. So
yeah, there you go.
As far as I take it, man.
I love it. Well, thanks a lot to Doug for taking so much time to answer that. That was amazing. All right, guys, before we continue with the picks of the week, I want to thank the last sponsor for this episode of This Week in Photo, and that's our good friends over at Squarespace.com. All right, let's go into the picks of the week segment. Remember, guys, you can pick something to recommend to the TWiP audience as long as it is somehow related to photography. Mr. Cilarina, you go first.
Hey, I'm going to give a big shout out to my friends at Maine Media. Maine Media Workshops in the Central Coast of Maine has an amazing program, and I'd say that even if I wasn't scheduled to go teach in a couple of weeks. But I've had the good fortune to go up there every August for the last many years, and it's an amazing program because they have both still photography as well as motion. New York, the New York film industry and TV industry has sent up a tremendous amount of talent through the years. So if you're looking to do something at the end of the summer or even in the fall in Central Maine is amazing. Head to mainemedia.edu and check them out. Maine Media Workshops.
Excellent, cool. Mainemedia.edu.
I'd love to do that.
All right, we'll link to that in the notes.
Frederick, we should go. We should go to a fall workshop.
We should go. Hey, I'm in this workshop state of mind. I've been all over the world going to workshops. Yeah. It's time for me to stay inside the U.S. for a while and go to some workshops here. All right, Dan, what's your pick of the week?
It's not necessarily gear or an app or anything like that. Everybody knows Calumet Photo abruptly closed
Yes, they
last
do.
year, a few months ago, and Bill Skinner here in Chicago and a few others got together, and I don't know how they did it, but they reopened as Pro Center Camera.
Mm.
So, our Calumet, I don't know about the whole country how they're doing it just yet, but I do know that here in Chicago, the 2 locations are now open again as Pro Center Camera. So it's just nice to have a shop to go into, kind of like we grew up going to, and cameras are there and salespeople are there, and I know they're doing workshops and things like that. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them. ProCenterCamera.com.
Excellent. Very good picks.
And online sales as well. I'm sure they do. Yep. Yeah, of course. Cameras, lenses, accessories, studio lighting, video, everything.
Very cool. All right. Well, thanks a lot for that. Another good pick. All right, my pick of the week. I have 2 actually. I've been playing around with some iOS applications, specifically because I'm experimenting with doing photo manipulation in the iPhone, and what can you do with that? So I was playing with 2 particular apps that I'm really having fun with. One of them is called Matter, Matter. You can find the iOS App Store. It's you got to play with this thing because essentially what it does, you give it a photo and it lets you put sort of 3D objects within the scene, and then you can flick a switch and animate them. So they animate and reflect the area around them, and it's just sort of otherworldly. You can do some really cool stuff with it. Check that one out. And then another one is called Flood.app, Flood. So Flood in the App Store, it allows you to do what you might imagine, put like a layer of water with different frequency of ripples in the water, different kinds of water, and then on a 3D plane, you can overlay it on your photo. So I did a photo, I had a shot of the Golden Gate Bridge, and I put a flood on it so that only the peaks of the bridge was sticking up. And then I took that image into Matter and put some weird little 3D objects floating above this apocalyptic scene that I built, all with my thumb, in the middle of, just in the middle of doing something else. And it came out pretty good. They're on my Instagram. You should check it out. Yeah, but those 2 apps are really cool. It's just amazing what you can do these days. The days of like these little, chintzy applications that let you put bulgy eyes on people and all that stuff, they're still there, but now we're getting really serious, professional-looking apps on the iPhone that let us do some pretty serious-looking art and photo manipulation.
That's cool.
So, yeah, definitely check those out. All right, guys, we are at the end of another episode of This Week in Photo. Once again, thanks to our sponsors for the show, and that's our good friends over at lynda.com and squarespace.com. The show would not be possible without their support, so give them a hand, give them a click, go download some tutorials, set up your website, and keep them in business and keep us in business. All right, Mr. Dan Ablin, where can people go to keep up with you?
I go to danablin.com, ABLAN, and about me, whatever that one is, slash Dan Ablin, and Twitter, also at danablin.com.
Awesome. And Dan, thanks a lot for coming on again. It's always a pleasure.
Sorry about my lower third there.
Oh, yeah, you forgot it. Look at that.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah, it doesn't show up in audio anyway, so it's okay.
Okay.
And congratulations on the move away from the studio. It sounds like a brave new world ahead of you.
Yeah, so we're going to be able to go to workshops together then.
Yes.
Watch some time.
Yes.
So
cool. You know what? I'm coming to Chicago around the holidays. We should hang out and go
absolutely.
crash. Let's have a party in Aaron Nace's studio. He's in Chicago.
And we'll probably still have ours, until we find somebody to rent it. But yeah, for sure.
Okay, awesome. All right, Mr. Sillerina, where would you like people to go to keep up with you, sign up for your workshops, and otherwise?
So Ground Zero for me these days is my blog, Pixelated. That's P as in Paul, IXSYLATED, pixelated.com.
Awesome. And when can we expect that book that you...
Oh, don't ask that question.
Authors hate that. I know they hate that.
No, because I've already received the first we're behind schedule email already.
Yeah.
It's going to be out this fall. It's one of the amazing things about Peach Pit is, you push the I'm done button, and 6 weeks later, that book is being shipped by Amazon. So
yeah.
Sometime this fall. It's I'm a third of the way there, so I can finish the rest of the book in 4 days, right?
Yeah, there you go. You're not jinxing yourself or anything, so don't worry about it.
No, but I will say this: it is, it's been a lot harder than I thought, but it's also been a real cleansing process because it's forced me to, figure out what's important. People are going to look at the second edition and they'll go, What about all that ETTL stuff you used to do? Because I shoot pretty much everything in manual mode in my lights these days, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's a true new work. So I'm supposed to be done by October 1. Ted, wait, cover your ears, but it's probably going to be November 1.
Uh-oh.
So anyway, but still in time for the holidays. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, that's good. I mean, yeah, I definitely want to read that. I had the first edition here.
No, I'm going to come out. I promise you, I'm coming up sometime to photograph you. You're going to be in the book, Frederick.
Dude,
So,
bring it.
yeah.
I'll come down to you. You're in Paso,
Yeah.
right? I'll come down there.
Yeah, actually, I'm in San Luis Obispo now. So.
Oh, you're in Slowtown.
Even better. Even better. When are you going to Brooks? When are you going to Brooks next?
Oh, geez. I think next month I'm making the little trip down.
We'll figure it out. You're going to be in the book.
All right. Wonderful.
So,
all right.
yeah.
You heard it here first. Don't buy that book unless I'm in it.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, thanks to both of you for coming on. And listeners, if you want to keep up with us, as you probably know, you can head over to our website at thisweekinphoto.com or check out the new All About the Gear show at thisweekinphoto.com/gear. And if you want to touch base with me personally, Frederick Van Johnson, you can find me at frederickvan.com. And with that, it's time to take that lens cap off.